The power of silence for self-reflection. The goal of silence is not just to avoid distractions, but to fully immerse oneself in the experience, allowing for deep self-reflection and insight. While the idea of a silent retreat may seem intense, it can be transformative, offering a rare opportunity to disconnect from the world and reconnect with ourselves. However, you don't need to go on a retreat to experience the benefits of silence. Small moments throughout your day, while waiting for a friend, walking to class, or even doing the dishes, can serve as a practice ground for silence. Over time, these brief periods will become easier and even enjoyable, with silence transforming from something to avoid into a friend you welcome. By making these moments a habit, we begin to see their effects ripple through other parts of our lives. We become more grounded, more present, and better able to handle life's challenges with a calm, centered mind. Remember, silence is not an escape from life. It's a way to engage with it more fully. It helps us connect with our inner selves, find clarity amid the noise, and approach life with peace and purpose. So, the next time you feel overwhelmed, give yourself the gift of silence. Practice these simple techniques and notice how it can shift not only your mood, but your entire outlook. 9. Silence as a mirror for the mind. Think about what happens when you look into a mirror. It reflects what's there, whether we like it or not. Silence, in a similar way, becomes a mirror for the mind. When we sit in silence without distractions, our thoughts, emotions, and memories begin to surface. At first, it may feel chaotic, like opening the floodgates to every feeling and thought we've been avoiding. But this is where silence becomes powerful. It allows us to truly see ourselves. In Buddhism, silence is used as a tool for self-observation. Just like muddy water slowly clears when still, our minds settle in silence. Over time, we begin to notice what's beneath the surface. Thoughts that come and go, emotions that rise and fall. We may realize we're holding on to fears we didn't know existed, or we might notice patterns of self-judgment. Silence helps us observe these aspects of our mind, often unnoticed in the busyness of life. A well-known meditation in Buddhism is called Vipassana, which means seeing things as they truly are. In Vipassana meditation, we sit in silence, observing our breath and body, watching the thoughts that arise without reacting to them. It's not about controlling the mind or forcing ourselves to stop thinking. Instead, it's about observing, noticing, and understanding. In our daily lives, we often react impulsively to our thoughts and emotions without questioning them. Silence offers the opportunity to slow down and examine them more closely. We start to realize that thoughts are just thoughts, not facts, and emotions are temporary, like waves in the ocean. Silence creates space between us and our inner experiences, offering us a sense of freedom. 10. Silence for young people. Cultivating self-awareness. For young people especially, this practice can be incredibly valuable. We often live under high expectations, pressures, and self-criticism. Silence helps us become aware of these inner pressures and, over time, to let them go. By observing our minds without judgment, we learn to be kinder to ourselves. Imagine sitting in silence and a critical thought arises, something like, "I'm not good enough," or "I'm always making mistakes." Instead of following this thought, imagine simply noticing it and letting it pass. You might even say, "Oh, there's that thought again," then return to your breath. This kind of self-awareness is what silence makes possible. It's not about fixing ourselves, but about accepting ourselves as we are. Buddhist teachers often compare the mind to the sky and thoughts to clouds passing by. The sky doesn't try to hold on to the clouds or push them away. It simply observes. In the same way, silence teaches us to be like the sky, watching our thoughts without attachment or resistance. This may seem simple, but it's a powerful shift. When we allow thoughts to come and go without being affected by them, we experience a deeper sense of calm. 11. Silence also reveals our emotions. When we're busy or distracted, it's easy to ignore our feelings. But in silence, they rise to the surface. This can be challenging, especially if we're carrying pain, sadness, or unresolved conflicts. However, rather than viewing these emotions as problems to fix, silence invites us to simply feel them, allowing them to move through us without resistance. 12th, practicing metta, loving kindness in silence. In Buddhism, there's a concept called metta, loving kindness. Metta is the practice of extending compassion, both to ourselves and to others. When we sit in silence and difficult emotions arise, metta encourages us to meet those feelings with kindness instead of judgment. We might place a hand on our heart, take a deep breath, and say something gentle to ourselves like, "It's okay to feel this way," or "I'm here for you." Practicing metta in silence allows us to build a compassionate relationship with our minds. Over time, silence helps us become familiar with our inner landscape, bringing awareness and kindness to our emotions and thoughts. 13. The power of silence and self-awareness. Our thoughts and emotions often reveal recurring themes, the things that bring us joy and the triggers that unsettle us. This self-awareness is incredibly empowering. It enables us to make conscious choices rather than simply acting on impulse or habit. In silence, we come to understand that we are not defined by our thoughts or emotions. Instead, we are the observer of them. This realization brings a profound sense of freedom. We no longer have to be defined by our fears, insecurities, or past experiences. Instead, we can see them, understand them, and let them go. The next time you find yourself sitting in silence, try observing your mind as though you're watching a movie. Notice the thoughts that arise, the emotions that surface, but remember, you're just the audience. You don't have to identify with what you see. In this space of observation, you'll find a new kind of clarity, a mirror that reflects not only who you are, but also who you have the potential to become. Silence isn't just the absence of noise, it's a space for transformation. When we allow our minds to be still, we begin to understand ourselves on a deeper level. In that understanding, we discover a peace that can't be shaken by life's ups and downs. 14. Stories of transformation through silence. Sometimes the best way to understand the power of silence is through stories. Stories of those who have experienced profound change through this simple, quiet practice. In the Buddhist tradition, there is the story of Siddhartha Gautama, the man who would become the Buddha. Siddhartha was born a prince, surrounded by luxury, wealth, and everything one could desire. Yet, despite all his possessions and privileges, he felt a deep emptiness, a restlessness he couldn't explain. So, he left his palace, his family, and everything he knew in search of answers. Siddhartha spent years studying with various teachers and practicing extreme forms of self-denial, but nothing brought him the peace he sought. One day, exhausted and nearly defeated, he sat beneath a Bodhi tree, resolved to remain there in silence until he found the truth. He spent the night in deep meditation, facing the inner conflicts and fears that arose within him. And it was in that silence, in that stillness, that he found enlightenment, a profound understanding of the nature of suffering, the path to peace, and the freedom that comes from letting go. The Buddha's story shows us that silence can be a pathway to insight and transformation. For him, silence wasn't an escape, but a way to connect with something much deeper, a source of wisdom that changed his life and the lives of millions who followed his teachings. But stories of transformation through silence aren't confined to ancient times. Many people today have found clarity, peace, and purpose through the practice of silence. Take, for instance, those who go on silent retreats for days or even weeks. They commit to not speaking, avoiding their phones, and stepping away from the usual distractions. Instead, they spend their time in meditation, self-reflection, and observation. For some, the first few days of a silent retreat are incredibly challenging. Without the usual distractions, they are forced to face their inner world, their worries, insecurities, and regrets. But as they sit with these thoughts, something incredible happens. Their minds begin to settle, the noise quiets down, and they start to feel a deep sense of peace. By the end of the retreat, many people report feeling transformed. They describe it as if they've been reset, gaining a fresh perspective on life and a newfound sense of calm. 15th, Aya's story, finding peace through silence. There is also a story about a young woman named Aya who struggled with overwhelming stress and anxiety. Aya worked a demanding job in a big city, and the constant rush left her feeling drained and disconnected from herself. One day, she decided to try something different. She set aside just 1 hour each weekend to sit in complete silence. No phone, no music, just her and her thoughts. At first, the silence felt uncomfortable. She didn't know what to do with all the thoughts and feelings that surfaced. But over time, she noticed a shift. In those moments of silence, she began to understand the sources of her anxiety. She realized much of her stress came from trying to control things beyond her control. Through this simple practice, she learned to let go. Aya's life didn't change overnight, but gradually she began to feel more grounded, more in tune with herself, and more at peace with the world around her. Silence became a refuge she could return to whenever she felt overwhelmed. The beauty of it was that she didn't need any special tools, locations, or rituals. Silence was something she carried within her, a source of strength she could tap into at any time. 16. Silence is accessible to all. These stories remind us that silence is accessible to all of us. It's not reserved for monks in monasteries or those on silent retreats. It's something we can integrate into our daily lives, even if it's just for a few minutes each day. What all these people found in silence is something words can hardly describe: a sense of freedom, clarity, and peace. The transformative power of silence. The feeling of being grounded in something unshakable. This is what many people discover when they embrace silence. Silence is not empty. It is filled with insights, clarity, and a peace that transcends circumstances. As you listen to these stories, reflect on how silence might transform your own life. You don't have to sit beneath a Bodhi tree or go on a retreat. All you need is the willingness to sit quietly, to listen, to let go, and to trust that wisdom resides in stillness. Sometimes the answers we seek are not in the noise, but in the quiet moments we create for ourselves. Silence, a gateway to wisdom and peace. As we near the end of this journey, let's pause to reflect. Throughout history, silence has been a powerful tool for those seeking wisdom, inner peace, and self-discovery. In Buddhism, silence is more than just the absence of sound. It is a gateway, a way of connecting to the world, to our true selves, and to the present moment in a way that words and noise often distract us from. We've explored the meaning of silence, its profound benefits, and practical ways to incorporate it into our daily lives. We've seen how silence can act as a mirror, reflecting our inner thoughts and emotions with honesty and clarity. Through stories, we've glimpsed how transformative silence can be, revealing a peace that is always within reach, no matter our circumstances. Embracing silence in daily life. The beauty of silence is that it doesn't require anything complicated. It's something we can all experience anywhere, at any time. All it takes is the willingness to pause, to listen, and to let go. If there's one thing to take away from this, it's that silence is not something to fear. It is a space to meet yourself, to connect with a deeper sense of clarity, and to cultivate a peace that goes beyond words. Each moment of silence is a step closer to understanding yourself, finding balance, and embracing life just as it is. So, I invite you to try this for yourself. Start with just a few minutes each day. Set aside a moment to sit in silence, to observe, to breathe. Let this practice grow and watch as it transforms not only how you feel, but also how you live. If this journey resonates with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. Together, we can explore more ways to cultivate peace, clarity, and mindfulness in our lives. And remember, you can always return to silence because the answers you seek are already within you. This version preserves the essence of your message while enhancing the readability and flow.